I've been holding on to this story for a long time, years actually. And even though life's moved on for me, this memory still lingers, like a scar that doesn't hurt anymore, but never fully fades. If you've ever had someone walk out of your life without explanation, leaving you to make sense of it all, then you'll probably understand what I went through. And maybe, like me, you'll find some closure in the end. I met Kayla at a friend's cookout. Nothing fancy, just burgers, cheap beer, and too many people crammed into a backyard. But she stood out. She had this contagious laugh, one of those personalities that pulled people in. We hit it off almost instantly. Over the next year, we built a pretty solid relationship. We weren't perfect, but we were honest. We had the usual ups and downs, a few spats about time management, disagreements about finances, normal couple stuff. But she made me feel grounded. And when we finally moved in together, it felt like a natural next step. We bought a house. Not rented, bought. That was huge for me. I was proud. I felt like I was finally building something stable. She was excited too. Or at least, she seemed to be. A few weeks before the move-in date, Kayla started acting different. Distant. Secretive. She was always on her phone, and when I'd ask her what was up, she'd get snappy or defensive. Said she was just stressed. I believed her, at first. Then one weekend, she didn't return my calls. Not one. I texted her. No reply. I even drove by the house we were about to move into, thinking maybe something had happened. Nothing. Lights off. Empty driveway. Just silence. I texted her something I now regret. If I did something wrong, at least tell me. Even Jesus forgave Judas. I was hurt. I was also desperate for closure. Her reply? God forgives all. And then, she blocked me. From everything. I was devastated. There's no other word for it. One day we were planning our future. Next, I was ghosted by the woman I thought I'd marry. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. My friends tried to be supportive, but how do you explain that level of abandonment? Eventually, I picked myself up, sold the house, packed up everything we bought together, closed that chapter. It wasn't easy, but I forced myself to move forward. About 3 months later, I was doing a routine drop-off at a local hospice center. I'm an EMT, so I'm used to being in and out of those places. I recognized the building. Kayla used to work there. Out of curiosity, I asked the nurse on duty if Kayla was still around. The nurse kind of hesitated, then said she'd been fired. Apparently, she had wrecked a company vehicle. But then she asked me something that hit like a freight train. Are you planning to help out when the baby comes? I froze. Baby? Turns out, Kayla had been 5 months pregnant when she ghosted me. It wasn't mine. I had gotten a vasectomy after my daughter was born years ago. There was no chance. The math didn't even work out. That revelation hurt more than anything. She hadn't just ghosted me. She'd betrayed me on a whole different level. But I didn't reach out. What was there to say? Fast forward a year and a half. I was dating someone new, an RN I met through work. Things were good. Solid. We were talking about moving in together, maybe even marriage. Then, out of the blue, texts, from an unknown number. Stuff like, "I hope you're doing well. Forgiveness is healing. I still think about you." I didn't respond. Then, one day, there was a note on my truck windshield. It was from Kayla. She wanted to meet, said she had something important to say. I debated it for hours, but eventually, I decided, no, I wasn't going to open that door again. A few days later, I got off shift and pulled into my driveway, and there she was, sitting on my porch, waiting. I walked right past her, didn't say a word. She stood up, followed me, practically begging me to talk. Finally, I turned around and asked, "What the hell do you want from me?" She broke down, told me everything. The guy who got her pregnant, the one she left me for, had bailed, left her with 2 kids and no money. She was behind on rent, bills piling up. Job wasn't enough. She didn't know where to turn. I didn't know how to feel. Part of me wanted to scream. Another part just felt numb. But I thought of her daughter, the oldest one. I'd helped raise that little girl. She wasn't mine by blood, but I cared about her. So I gave Kayla $100, told her to buy groceries, and then I said the hardest words I've ever had to say. "Swallow your pride. Go home to your mother. You've burned every bridge here." She cried. I think deep down, she thought I'd rescue her, that I'd be the same guy who used to jump at the chance to fix everything. But I wasn't that guy anymore. I had rebuilt myself. Last I heard, she moved back in with her mom. She got her teaching license. She's working at an elementary school now. I hope her daughters are okay, truly. As for me, I'm still with the woman I met after everything. We're happy. We talk about marriage a lot. Maybe this year. Sometimes I think about Kayla. Not often. But when I do, I don't feel anger anymore. Just sadness. Like remembering a song you used to love. Only shadows melting into darkness. Before you knew what it really meant. If you made it this far, thank you for listening. If you're going through heartbreak right now, I hope my story shows you that you will come out the other side. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but someday you'll look back and realize you made it. Because sometimes closure doesn't come with an apology. It comes with peace. I don't know if I'm looking for advice or just a space to finally breathe, but here it goes. What I'm about to share is the most painful, confusing, and emotionally draining chapter of my life. It's about betrayal, about grooming, about how love can sometimes disguise control, and how hard it is to let go of someone you once saw forever with. I met Ray when I was 23. He was 25, charming, witty, and had this quiet confidence about him, the kind that made you feel safe. I had gone through a pretty rough childhood, abuse, neglect, a lot of emotional trauma. So when someone made me feel seen, truly seen, it felt like a miracle. Ray became that miracle. At first, everything was perfect. We'd stay up late, shared bills, bought furniture, made plans for vacations, and even talked about starting a small business together. He was the first man I let in completely. Now here's where things start getting weird. There was always this woman in Ray's life. Her name was Teresa. I assumed she was a mentor or a family friend. He mentioned she had been a teacher of his back in high school. They stayed in touch over the years. But the way he talked about her, it wasn't normal. He would say things like, "She always believed in me when no one else did," or "She knows me better than anyone." I thought, okay, maybe she was a big influence on him. I didn't question it at first. But then I started noticing patterns. He'd get calls from her late at night. They'd meet up for lunch, and he'd lie about where he was going. He once said he was going to visit a cousin, but later slipped up and mentioned something Teresa said that day. And she was 49, almost twice his age. Divorced twice, with 2 adult kids, one of whom was literally Ray's age. I brought it up once, cautiously, and he got defensive immediately. "She's like family. Don't make this weird." I backed off, trusting him. I shouldn't have. Over the next few months, Ray began to change. Slowly at first. He became more distant. He started questioning everything we used to align on. Suddenly, he didn't want kids. He didn't want to start the business anymore. He started missing our couples therapy appointments. Then came the religious shift. Ray had always been spiritual, but nothing too intense. But now, he started quoting things I'd never heard before. He was referencing practices and ideas that didn't align with the faith he'd grown up with, or the one we shared. When I asked him where it was all coming from, he said Teresa had opened his eyes to a higher truth. That was the first time my heart cracked. A few weeks later, I found out everything. Ray had been seeing Teresa behind my back. Not just once. Not a fling. A full-blown emotional and physical affair. He finally admitted it after I confronted him with a message I saw on his smartwatch. Yeah, he forgot to turn off notifications. It was a message from Teresa that said, "You know you've always belonged to me." I broke down. I asked him how he could do this to me after everything. His answer? "She's always been there. Since I was a kid. She understands me in ways no one else can." I couldn't believe it. He was defending it. This wasn't just infidelity. It was manipulation. She had been in his life since he was 14. She'd waited, groomed, and pulled him in under the mask of support. And now, he was calling it love. The days that followed were a blur. I left our apartment, moved in with a friend temporarily. He didn't chase after me, didn't even call. It was like I never existed. And that hurt more than the betrayal itself. I questioned myself constantly. Was I not enough? Did I do something to push him away? Why didn't I see it coming? But in those dark moments, I started reading up on grooming, emotional manipulation, power imbalances, and I began to realize Ray wasn't just unfaithful. He had been under someone else's influence since he was a kid. That didn't excuse what he did, but it made me understand why he couldn't see it. And maybe he still doesn't. About 8 months later, I got a message on Facebook from a burner account. It was Teresa. She wrote, "I hope one day you can forgive both of us. Ray's finding his way. We never meant to hurt you." I didn't respond. I couldn't. What did she expect? That I'd say, "Oh, no worries. Thanks for emotionally destroying the only stable relationship I ever had." Ray never reached out again. I heard from a mutual friend that he'd moved in with her, that they were talking about getting married. And all I could think was, this isn't love. This is captivity disguised as devotion. It took time, but I'm healing. I'm in therapy now, unpacking not just what Ray did, but what I've been through my whole life. I've started dating again, slowly, cautiously. I'm learning that love isn't supposed to feel like walking on eggshells. I'm learning that loyalty doesn't mean tolerating betrayal. And most of all, I'm learning to forgive myself for staying too long, for ignoring red flags, for loving someone who didn't love me back in a way I deserved. So yeah, that's my story. If you've made it this far, thank you for listening. I don't have all the answers, but I hope this helps someone else out there who's been manipulated, lied to, or broken down. Sometimes the hardest part of healing is accepting that closure won't come from the person who hurt you. It comes from choosing yourself. I never thought my 3-year relationship would fall apart in a parking lot. But there I was, watching the man I loved sit beside a girl I'd never seen before, laughing while my world shattered quietly in the driver's seat of my car. This is the story of how I found out my boyfriend was not the person I thought he was, and how I lost him at the exact moment I needed him most. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today's story is one of heartbreak, betrayal, and the painful reality of loving someone who doesn't love you the same way in return. If you've ever trusted someone only to watch them slowly slip away, or worse, hide the truth from you, this one's going to hit home. Let me take you back to the beginning. I was 19 when I met Zach. He was kind, charming, in a slightly awkward way, and had this boyish honesty that made you feel like you could trust him with your entire heart. And I did. For 3 whole years. We met through a mutual friend, and things clicked instantly. My family loved him, loved him. He came to family dinners, birthdays, even helped my dad build a new fence in our backyard. He was going to move in with us, too, because of stuff going on with his parents. They saw him like one of their own, and I thought he was the one. The first 2 years were honestly perfect. Sure, we had our little arguments, but nothing serious. We talked about everything, and even when life got hard, we held each other up. But then came September. In September 2024, Zach left for school. It wasn't far, just over an hour away, but it meant he'd be living on campus while I stayed home with my family. We promised each other it wouldn't change anything. We were too solid for that, right? At first, it didn't seem like a big deal. We texted, called, sent dumb TikToks to each other. He seemed happy, busy, but happy. Then things started to shift. The calls became shorter. Texts took longer. He started dodging FaceTime with weak excuses like bad Wi-Fi or I'm just so tired. And then he turned his location off. That might seem small, but we always shared locations. Not because we were possessive, but just for peace of mind. My gut twisted, but I told myself I was being paranoid. Spoiler alert, I wasn't. Fast forward to a few weeks later. A girl, completely unknown to me, DMs me on Instagram. She said, "Hey, I don't want to cause drama, but I think I might have made out with your boyfriend last month. I had no idea he was taken until I found your pictures. I didn't believe it at first." I called Zach in a panic, and after a long silence, he admitted it. He said he was drunk, that it meant nothing, that he didn't even remember her name. He cried, told me it was a stupid, one-time mistake. I was shattered, but like so many people in love, I gave him grace. I said, "Don't let this happen again, ever." I wanted to believe in him, in us. But the truth, that night was just the beginning of the unraveling. Last week, my grandfather passed away. It was sudden. It was heartbreaking. Zach texted me his condolences, said he didn't want to overwhelm me, and that I needed time to grieve. I was grateful, at first, until I realized he'd barely spoken to me for a full week. No calls, just surface-level texts. I felt abandoned, like the one person I thought I could lean on had quietly slipped away. Then one night, he turned his location off again. That feeling came back, that gut-sick, heart-sinking feeling. So I did something I never thought I'd do. I got in my car and drove to his campus. It was late, maybe 10:30. I didn't know what I was even expecting, but I found him, sitting in a plaza parking lot, with a girl. They weren't kissing, they weren't holding hands, but the way they were sitting, close. Laughing. It wasn't nothing. He looked stunned when he saw me. He jumped out of the car like he'd seen a ghost. "It's not what it looks like," he said. Classic. He told me they were just friends, that she was helping him with a project, that they'd been talking for 2 weeks. 2 weeks. While I was grieving, while I was crying every night, while he was ignoring me. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just got in my car and drove home. The next day, Zach begged to talk. He said he was sorry, that he's been messed up lately, that he's been hiding things from me. And then he dropped something else on me. He had been secretly taking testosterone supplements since July. He said it made him feel strange, more impulsive, emotionally numb. He said that's why he messed up, that he was confused, that it wasn't really him. I sat there, listening to him blame everything, his hormones, his childhood, his confusion, and I realized something. For 3 years, I gave him grace, love, loyalty, but when I needed him, when my world fell apart, he gave me excuses. It's been a few days now. Zach is devastated. He says he wants to change, that he'll do therapy, stop taking the hormones, be the man I deserve. But I don't know. I still love him. That's the hardest part. I still look at him and see the boy who helped my dad build a fence, who made me breakfast when I was sick, who held me during anxiety attacks. But that boy, he's not here anymore. He left the moment he kissed that girl, and every lie after that just dug the hole deeper. So what do you do when your forever person betrays you? Do you forgive? Do you stay? Or do you finally walk away, knowing that love alone isn't enough? I don't have a perfect answer, but I know this. If someone truly loves you, they don't disappear when you need them most. They don't lie. They don't cheat. And they don't ask for another chance after they've already had 100. Thanks for listening to my story. If you've been through something similar, feel free to share in the comments. You're not alone. Dot.